When Detective Linda Martinez opened the envelope that had been sitting on Chief Patterson's desk for 3 days, she expected another crank letter, another false confession, another waste of departmental time. What she found instead was a single typed page with 3 names, 3 dates, and 3 precise descriptions of how these people would die. The letter had been postmarked 2 weeks earlier, and according to the dates written on that page, the first death was supposed to happen that very evening. It started in the small coastal town of Bridgeport, Maine, population just under 15,000. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where crime usually means vandalism at the high school or the occasional drunk and disorderly. The police department wasn't accustomed to mysteries. They handled traffic violations, domestic disputes, and the yearly summer tourist chaos. So when the first letter arrived at the station on October 8, 2018, addressed simply to Bridgeport Police Department, nobody thought much of it. The envelope sat in the chief's inbox for days, buried under requisition forms and incident reports. Detective Martinez only opened it on October 11th because she was looking for something else entirely. But once she read the contents, everything else stopped mattering. The letter was typed on plain white paper with a standard font, nothing distinctive about it. No signature, no return address, no explanation. Just 3 names, 3 dates, and 3 methods of death. The first name was Robert Chen, age 47, local accountant. Date of death, October 11th, 2018. Method, car accident on Route 12, approximately 7:15 p.m. Vehicle will leave the road at the sharp curve near Miller's Point. Detective Martinez checked her watch. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. She immediately brought the letter to Chief Patterson, who read it with a frown deepening across his face. "It's probably nothing," he said, though his voice carried uncertainty. "Some sick joke. But given that it names a specific person and a specific location, we should probably check it out." He assigned Martinez and Officer Tom Bradley to drive out to Miller's Point and keep watch, just in case. "Humor me," the chief said. "And if nothing happens, we'll file this under crankmail and forget about it." Martinez and Bradley positioned their patrol car with a view of the curve on Route 12, the spot the letter had specified. Miller's Point was notorious among locals, a sharp bend in the road where the guardrail overlooked a steep drop into dense woods. There had been accidents there before, usually involving teenagers driving too fast or tourists unfamiliar with the road. The officers sat in uncomfortable silence as the sun began to set, both feeling slightly ridiculous for taking the letter seriously, but neither willing to voice it. At 7:12 p.m., a silver Honda Accord came around the bend, traveling at normal speed. Robert Chen was behind the wheel. Martinez recognized him. She'd seen him around town, a quiet man who did taxes for half the businesses in Bridgeport. The car navigated the curve without incident and continued down the road. Bradley let out a breath. "Well, there goes our prediction," he said with obvious relief. But Martinez kept watching, something gnawing at her gut. 3 minutes later, at exactly 7:15, the same silver Honda came back around the curve from the opposite direction. Later, investigators would learn that Chen had forgotten his phone at the office and had turned around to retrieve it. As the car entered the curve, its brake lights suddenly flared bright red. The vehicle swerved violently as if Chen had overcorrected for something. It crashed through the guardrail with a sound of shrieking metal and disappeared over the edge. Martinez and Bradley were out of their patrol car and calling for emergency services within seconds. They scrambled down the embankment to find the Honda wrapped around a tree, front end completely crushed. Robert Chen was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner would later determine he'd had a massive heart attack while driving, causing him to lose control of the vehicle. Natural causes, compounded by the unfortunate timing and location. A tragic accident, except it had been predicted down to the minute and the exact location, 2 weeks before it happened. The second name on the letter was Patricia Donnelly, age 32, elementary school teacher. Date of death, October 18, 2018. Method: fall from apartment balcony. Approximately 2 a.m. The letter specified her address, a third-floor apartment in one of Bridgeport's few multi-unit buildings. After Robert Chen's death, the letter was no longer a curiosity. It was evidence in an active investigation. Chief Patterson immediately ordered protection for Patricia Donnelly. When Martinez and Bradley showed up at her apartment to explain the situation, Patricia was understandably terrified. "Someone wants to kill me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why? I'm a second-grade teacher. I don't have enemies. This doesn't make any sense." Martinez tried to reassure her that they didn't know if it was a threat or a warning or something else entirely, but they were taking it seriously. Officers would be posted outside her building. She should stay inside, away from the balcony, and call immediately if anything seemed unusual. For 6 days, nothing happened. Patricia stayed with her parents across town, refusing to even go near her apartment. Police maintained surveillance on the building. The 18th approached with everyone on edge, and as 2 a.m. came and went without incident, there was a collective sigh of relief. Maybe Chen's death had been a coincidence. Maybe the letter writer had been scared off by the police presence. Maybe whatever this was had ended. Patricia returned to her apartment on October 20th, 2 days after the predicted date. She felt safe, protected by the knowledge that the prediction had been wrong. She went back to teaching her second graders, went back to her normal life. The police reduced their surveillance, though they kept her case file open. Martinez still drove by Patricia's building every few days, just to check. On October 23rd, 5 days after the date specified in the letter, Patricia Donnelly fell from her third-floor balcony at approximately 2 a.m. Neighbors reported hearing a scream and called 911. Patricia survived the fall but was critically injured, with severe trauma to her head and spine. She remained in a coma for 3 days before dying on October 26th without ever regaining consciousness. The investigation into her fall revealed something chilling. Patricia had been sleepwalking, something she'd done occasionally since childhood but hadn't experienced in years. Her parents confirmed this, mentioning that she'd walked in her sleep as a child but had outgrown it. On the night of the 23rd, she'd apparently walked onto her balcony in her sleep and either lost her balance or, in her unconscious state, simply walked off the edge. The fall didn't kill her immediately, but it was ultimately fatal. And while the date was off by 5 days, the method and the approximate time were exactly as the letter had described. 2 deaths. 2 predictions that had, impossibly, come true. The third name on the letter was David Foster, age 59, retired firefighter. Date of death, November 3, 2018. Method: drowning in Bridgeport Harbor, approximately 6:30 a.m. The letter gave no other details, just those bare facts stated with the same clinical precision as the previous 2. David Foster was placed under round-the-clock police protection. He was a widower who lived alone, a well-liked member of the community who volunteered at the fire station and coached Little League. When police told him about the letter, his first reaction was disbelief, followed by anger. "This is sick," he said. "Using Bob Chen's death and that poor girl's accident to scare people? Whoever wrote this letter should be in jail." But he agreed to cooperate with police protection, though he insisted he wasn't going to hide in his house like a prisoner. The investigation into the letters intensified. FBI forensic analysts examined the paper, the envelope, the postmark. The paper was common stock available at any office supply store. The typing had been done on a computer and printed on a standard laser printer, impossible to trace. The postmark was local, from the Bridgeport post office, but surveillance footage from that time period showed hundreds of people mailing letters. The envelope had been handled by too many postal workers to get clean fingerprints. Whoever had sent the letters had been careful, leaving no traceable evidence. As November 3rd approached, Bridgeport felt like a town under siege. David Foster was essentially in protective custody, with officers accompanying him everywhere. He wasn't allowed near the harbor, wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. The police were determined that this prediction, at least, would not come true. November 3rd dawned cold and gray. David Foster spent the night at the police station itself, the safest place anyone could think of. At 6:30 a.m., the time specified in the letter, he was sitting in Chief Patterson's office, drinking coffee and playing cards with Detective Martinez and Officer Bradley. He was alive, safe, surrounded by law enforcement. The prediction had been broken. Everyone relaxed. Whatever sick game the letter writer had been playing, it was over. They'd saved David Foster. He went home that afternoon, exhausted but relieved, with police still maintaining regular checks on his house. Life began to return to normal. Weeks passed. Then months. David Foster continued his volunteer work, continued coaching Little League, continued living his life. On February 17, 2019, more than 3 months after the date specified in the letter, David Foster died. He'd been working on his boat, a small fishing vessel he kept docked at Bridgeport Harbor. He'd gone out alone on a calm morning to do some maintenance. When he didn't return by afternoon, Harbor Patrol went looking for him. They found his boat drifting, engine off, and David Foster's body in the water beside it. He'd apparently slipped on the wet deck, hit his head on the gunwale, and fallen unconscious into the water where he drowned. The time of death was estimated at approximately 6:30 a.m. He had drowned in Bridgeport Harbor, just as the letter had predicted. 3 people named in a mysterious letter. 3 deaths, all occurring exactly as described, though 2 of them happened days or months after the dates specified. The investigation consumed the Bridgeport Police Department and eventually drew in state and federal authorities. Every angle was explored. Had someone orchestrated these deaths to match the predictions? Medical examiners found no evidence of foul play in any of the 3 cases. Chen had genuinely had a heart attack. Donnelly had genuinely been sleepwalking. Foster's fall had genuinely been an accident. These were not murders staged to look like accidents. They were actual accidents. Could the letter writer have somehow caused these accidents? Investigators found no connection between the 3 victims beyond living in the same small town. They hadn't been friends, didn't work together, didn't share any obvious links. There was no evidence that anyone had tampered with Chen's car, no evidence that anyone had drugged Donnelly to induce sleepwalking, no evidence that anyone had sabotaged Foster's boat. The deaths appeared to be genuinely accidental. So how had someone predicted them? Detective Martinez spent months chasing theories. Had the letter writer somehow known these people had health conditions or risk factors? Chen's heart condition had been undiagnosed, something even he hadn't known about. Donnelly's childhood sleepwalking had been years in her past. Foster was a healthy, experienced boater. There were no obvious warning signs that would have allowed someone to predict these specific deaths. The case remains open and unsolved. No other letters have arrived. No one has come forward to claim responsibility or explain how they knew. The 3 deaths are officially classified as accidental, but the letter that predicted them sits in an evidence file, a mystery that haunts everyone who worked the case. Detective Martinez, now retired, still thinks about it. "I've considered every rational explanation," she said in a recent interview. Coincidence, inside information, some kind of conspiracy, none of it fits. The simplest explanation is the one nobody wants to say out loud, that somehow someone knew these people were going to die. They knew when, they knew how, and they knew where. And I have no idea how that's possible. The letters remain one of the most baffling unsolved mysteries in Maine history. 3 deaths, 3 perfect predictions, and absolutely no explanation for how anyone could have known. Because the alternative, the one that keeps Detective Martinez awake some nights, is even more terrifying. That maybe the letter writer didn't predict the deaths at all. Maybe they caused them in ways we simply cannot understand or detect. And if that's true, if someone has that capability, the real question isn't how they did it. It's why they stopped at 3.